When we practice disbelief is a way of filtering down to our children. Nebuchadnezzar in his endeavors, Nebuchadnezzar in his life, by the time he concluded his life, I don't think he had enough time to train up his children as to what lessons God had taught him. I pray that you also, as a parent, you can translate your faith to your children. Let them own it. Let them have it. Let them live it. Let them experience it in their own worlds. Because if you don't do that, the most painful thing that happens in life is that the mistakes of the fathers, the mistakes of the parents, is a way of being mutated, translated, carried forward from one generation to the other. And we tend to see this in the story as the story of Nebuchadnezzar is progressing. By the time you get to chapter 5, the son or the grandson of Nebuchadnezzar was at chapter 1 of the book of Daniel, if you understand what I'm talking about. Because the mischief that Nebuchadnezzar had at the beginning of his ministry, at the beginning of his government, in chapter 1, that's exactly what the young boy was doing. The same blunders that the father did in his early days, the young man discovers he is also going to make the same mistakes word for word. What am I talking about? Educate, educate, educate. Train, train, train. Learn to transmit and share your mistakes with your children. Tell them what God has done and warn them where to turn left and where to turn right. For if you don't share the honesty and truthfulness of your path with God, the reality is that the mistakes that you've made in your life are going to follow their way into the lives of your children. And I bet you how painful it will be to notice and see your own children going through the same tears that you also used to cry when you were still a young man. Belshazzar, the grandson of Nebuchadnezzar, wakes up in the morning like all other kings do to celebrate his inauguration into power. The Bible then says, and he called his nobles, and he called his mighty men, he called his powerful satraps, he called his generals, he called his army leaders, he called his wives. Take note of that. And not only that, he also called his concubines. Oh, these are temporal spots of entertainment. And when everybody was sitting around his house, Belshazzar inside this party decided he was going to celebrate his gods. See, there's nothing wrong with you celebrating your gods. There's nothing wrong with you finding your own way how you want to celebrate things. But let me share something with you that is very difficult in life. You see, women are poison. Let me talk to men for a minute. Women are poison. They are a drug on their own. Even if it is your wife, she's a drug on her own. But some men who have wives and have become dysfunctional, when their wives cough, they catch a cold. No, that's okay for another day. Then when you add women, see, it's one woman who is enough to give you trouble in the sleepless night. Some of us are balding on our heads because we're not sleeping at night. The women's hands are always on our ribs telling us to do things. Now, if you cannot tolerate one woman, imagine you have a couple of them, wives. Now, if you were getting gray on the other side, you start really decomposing on the other end. But that's not all. When you include woman and you put women on woman, and then you add concubines on top, then you are on the highway of chaos. Not only that, when you add liquor on top of women concubines, then you are moving into the lithosphere. But over and above that, when you put power into the concoction, you would begin to notice that this man was tampering with things that even kings can be reduced to powder. Nebuchadnezzar had done this and he had failed. Belshazzar mounts up to power, calls his woman, calls his women, calls his concubines, calls his liquor, calls his generals, feels powerful. And all of a sudden, he transits from power to becoming a religious leader. You know, that's what happens when people are drunk, then they become religious. When people are drunk, they have nothing else to do, then they want to play with God. Then Belshazzar makes an announcement. We have tried everything. We have tried liquor, we have tried power, we have tried women, we have tried concubines, we have tried everything. There is something. What is it that we have not yet tried? And in his head, the corrupt, evil thought The devil whispers his funeral in his ears. You didn't hear me out there. He actually whispers his death in his ears. There are some utensils that your grandfather brought from the land of Israel. They've been rotting, sitting in the temple on the other side. How about going to take those utensils and bring them here and let us drink from them? You see the dangerous part. When you take the utensils allocated for divine use and you want to begin to use them for your own secular purpose, please come with me here. There are things that have been allocated for divine use. When you become too mischievous and you misappropriate the usage of grace, then you are tampering with judgment. When Belshazzar started drinking in these cups, he lost everything that he had. I want to pray and challenge you that as you are trying out life, as you are having your parties, as you are busy getting excited, be careful of the drugs that contaminate the soul.